The ocean floor was silent, a vast, endless desert of darkness stretching beneath the Pacific. Professional diver Marco Reeves and his team were several hours into their descent, mapping an unexplored trench when their sonar began to behave strangely. The readings spiked, then leveled into a shape too precise to be natural. A rectangular outline, perfectly symmetrical, buried beneath decades of coral and sediment. "Hold position," Marco said through his headset, voice steady but sharp, his eyes fixed on the sonar screen. "That's not rock." They adjusted their lights, and for the first time, a faint reflection glimmered from the abyss metal. The team descended carefully, lights cutting through clouds of silt. And there it was, a massive structure, cold and alien against the living ocean. A bunker. Its walls smooth, seamless, and impossibly intact, despite being hundreds of meters below sea level. "This thing's not wreckage," one diver whispered. "It's built." Marco hovered close to the entrance, a circular steel hatch sealed shut, crusted with layers of coral and rust. It looked ancient, but the engineering was far too advanced for its supposed age. Someone had made sure this place would last. They spent 3 days returning to the site, clearing marine growth and drilling around the seal with delicate precision. Each strike of the tool echoed through the water like thunder. On the 4th day, the hatch finally gave way. A low hiss escaped, a stream of trapped bubbles rising like ghosts toward the surface. For something sealed this long, the air pressure inside was still active. That alone shouldn't have been possible. Marco steadied his breathing and moved closer, peering into the darkness beyond. "Lights on," he ordered. The beams pierced the void, sweeping across a vast metal corridor coated in algae and salt crystals. But what caught their attention wasn't the size, it was the fact that everything was still standing. They swam forward cautiously. The walls curved slightly, designed for structural pressure, unmistakably human engineering. But unlike any blueprint they'd seen, instruments lined the panels, frozen in time. Dials, consoles, control lights. Marco's hand brushed against a plaque half covered in grime. He wiped it clean. The letters etched into the steel made his stomach drop. Pacific Command Site Restricted. The date below read 1964, a Cold War installation. Hidden. Forgotten. The divers exchanged uneasy glances. No one said a word. They pressed deeper into the structure, every light beam revealing more storage rooms, pipelines and equipment still bolted in place. And then, ahead of them, a massive chamber. When they entered, the cameras captured something no one expected. 2 submarines, docked side by side inside the flooded bay, perfectly preserved. Their hulls bore faded insignias, long erased by history, yet the steel gleamed as if time itself had avoided touching them. Marco froze. "This place was never abandoned," he muttered. It was sealed. As Marco's flashlight swept across the interior, something shimmered on the water's surface, a faint mist, rising and falling as if the base were still breathing. The divers hovered in silence, eyes wide behind their masks. Somewhere deep inside, a mechanical hum echoed faintly through the metal corridors. "That sound," one of them whispered. "Something's still running." They followed the faint noise through a narrow passageway, the walls lined with rusted pipes and faded warning signs written in English and Russian. The deeper they went, the more impossible it became to believe this place had been abandoned for 60 years. Power conduits pulsed weakly with residual current. A ventilation shaft vibrated with low pressure, moving air that should not exist down here. Finally, they reached a sealed control room. Marco pried the door open, and the beam of his torch revealed a perfectly preserved chamber map still pinned to the walls, clipboards floating mid-water, and a cracked coffee mug resting near a console. Then they saw a massive reactor unit, still humming faintly. A self-sustaining experimental power core built during the Cold War. It was designed to operate independently for decades, recycling seawater to generate heat and oxygen. Somehow, it had never shut down. "This wasn't just a bunker," Marco said quietly. "It was a living base." In one corner, sealed behind a thick glass partition, lay a small room filled with personal effects, uniforms, notebooks, and sealed crates marked Classified, Naval Research Division. Marco carefully opened one. Inside were waterproof binders containing data logs, sonar maps, and surveillance photos, not of enemies, but of the seafloor itself. It became clear, this base wasn't meant for warfare. It was an observation post, built to study something beneath the ocean, something that had drawn both American and Soviet interest during the height of the Cold War. Before the team could transmit their findings, the power suddenly flickered. The hum rose to a deeper vibration, and faint ripples disturbed the water around them. The bunker wasn't dead, it was responding to their presence. "Surface now!" Marco shouted. They began to ascend, leaving behind the silent chamber. Through the murky water, they could still see the faint glow from below, a pulse, steady and alive, as if the base itself were watching them go. When they reached the ship and transmitted their data, military authorities immediately classified the site's coordinates. The footage was never released. Only fragments of Marco's discovery leaked years later, enough to fuel theories that the Pacific Command site had been part of a joint secret experiment to monitor seismic or unidentified activity in the deepest trenches. To this day, no one knows who built it first or what exactly it was guarding, but divers who pass through that region claim that, sometimes, sonar still picks up a faint rhythmic signal, echoing from the depths, like a machine that never truly shut down.